Cars Keys is brought to you by TickSplits.com, the official ticket provider for Bears Barroom. TickSplits.com. No service fees. The price you see is the price you pay. TickSplits.com.
Hey, what's going on, Barroom? It's Cars here, doing my Cars Keys to the game against the Los Angeles Rams. And this is one that I'm really looking forward to watching. Unfortunately, because I have to travel for work, I'll be watching it from an airplane as I fly into the Los Angeles area, so that will be a bit of a challenge and very frustrating for me. But it's a game that I'm really looking forward to seeing. I think the national narrative has really been this unstoppable force, LA Rams offense going against kind of this immovable object of the Chicago Bears defense. And obviously there's a lot to that, and that's some of what I'm going to be talking about today. But there's some other portions that I before I kind of get into the keys, the one thing I want to talk briefly about is how different the Rams offense really looks kind of compared to some of the rest of the league. And you see this a lot in the Kansas City Chiefs as well. You know, last week we talked that the Giants were about fifth at that point in time in yards after the catch. They've now dropped to eighth after this last game. Well, the Rams are fifth. Shocker, right? But what's been different is, and I'm kind of somewhat planning on trying to write a bit of an article before I fly. We'll see if I'm able to do that. Is that the NFL game has changed in such a way that teams are really relying on schematically getting players open, right, and doing things right. We see an increase in pick plays. I really blame the Clemson beating Alabama game, right, with Hunter Renfrow throwing this perfect pick in the end zone for the last touchdown. I think that kind of thing stayed in a lot of players' minds. We've really seen an increase in a lot of these pick plays in this short yardage game. And don't get me wrong, LA runs them, but this is a team that really attacks vertically, right? You look at them. They're not content necessarily with a lot of these short passes. They're gonna try to hit you deep. It's a lot of timing. That's why Whitworth has been such an important signing and solidifying that line for them. But it's been really fun to kind of watch them vertically challenge. It almost reminds me of the old. And I wasn't old enough to watch those, but I've seen a lot of the old, Air Coryell type schemes where vertically they want to challenge you, and they've got all the guys to do that.
Play action again with tempo to get up to the line, cranking it up downfield. He wants Woods, who has to come back and die for it. Regains his footing, and it's going to be first and goal Rams.
But when I talk about the keys, I'm going to start actually against the LA Rams defense. I think that's more of an interesting one, especially when you consider the investment that team made and then tried to continue to make throughout the season, right? So the big deal of Donald, picking up Ndamukong, right? Trading for Aqib Talib and Marcus Peters, right? Lamarcus Joyner was their transition guy 2 years ago when they kept him over Sammy Watkins, right? They've made a pretty significant investment into the defensive side of the ball, and to say that it hasn't worked is probably putting it a little too kindly. And granted, right, Aqib Talib has only played 4 games this year, so it's hard to see what his impact is, and he'll be playing this week, although you do have to wonder what his return is going to mean, especially after injury, considering his age. But a team that's made that kind of investment, right, and realistically looks a lot better than they did on paper, hasn't been as good on paper. They're already given up 31 points less than they did all of last year with 4 games to go. Right, they're giving up 25 points a game. That's 19th in the league. But where they really struggle is the big play. And you're not going to hear me talk about the run game. I think there's definitely going to be opportunities there. But this is a game that you're going to have to attack them in the air. And so this is a team, right, that they're giving up 6.1 yards per play. This is a team that is giving up 8 yards per pass play, which is good enough for 26th in the league. But where they've been gashed is in big plays.
Mahomes winds it up, wide open as Hill. How quick was that? 73 yards. Wow.
So when you hear kind of people talk about the Bears, they said the success of the defense has been the lack of big plays. And right, we saw last week, sorry for mentioning it again, right, but big plays are what caused us to lose, whether it was the Odell Beckham touchdown throw, whether it was a couple of big gaping runs from Saquon Barkley. But overall in the passing game, we've been extremely solid. We've given up only 20 to 39 yard pass plays. We've given up 9 40-yard plus pass plays. Well, the worst team in the NFL has given up 55 20-plus yard pass plays, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs. No shocker there. We've seen how bad they've been. But the Rams aren't that far behind. As a matter of fact, they're 5 behind. They've given up 50 plays of 20 yards or more. They're last in the league, having given up 12 40-plus yard plays, right? So this is a team that it takes some chances, right? Marcus Peters, for as good as he can be when he's focused, he's motivated, right? He feels he's being treated poorly by the media or by his coaching staff. When he's on, he's pretty good, but he really hasn't been on since the end of last year and all of this year. He showed up a little bit in that Kansas City game, but he's been pretty quiet. Now, he's very opportunistic. He's a very good student of the game, but this is a defense that has 11 interceptions, right? And what we always hear the pundits kind of talk about and take away some of the success of our defense from making interceptions by saying, well, it's the increase in pass rush from Khalil Mack that's forcing teams to make a lot of bad decisions. That's forcing things to hurry up, and that's what's really inflating some of the numbers of the defenders. And now some of our local guys, right, have been very good at talking about how good we've been, but there's a lot that takes away from that. Well, that hasn't applied at all to the LA Rams. This is a team that has 33 sacks as a whole, but 11 interceptions.
Rodgers gets out of trouble, and there's Devontae Adams. A first down to the 32-yard line.
So while the increase in pressure from there, and this will tie into my second point, which will be about Aaron Donald, who's without a doubt probably going to break Michael Strahan's sack record. He's definitely going to break the all-time interior lineman record of Warren Sapp for sacks in a season. This is a guy who's at 16 and a half sacks through 11 games. Let that set in for a second.
Second down, and Stafford is sacked by Aaron Donald.
It has just been purely dominant, but it hasn't showed up in the stat book. So this is a team that can give up big plays, and some of that happens just because of the nature of their offense, right? This is an offense that scores a lot of points, gets big yardage, so they aren't doing a lot of time-consuming drives, right? They're more happy to go 75 yards in 4 plays as opposed to 8 plays, 10 plays, 12 plays, right? They just want to hit you. And that's somewhat come at the expense of their defense. We've all heard the narrative about Mitch, right? He's an aggressive quarterback. Some question the decision-making. I think we see it getting better and better. I'm hoping that 2 more weeks of kind of seeing it from the sidelines is going to help retrain his eyes a little bit. But there are going to be big plays out there. There are going to be moments, right, where Talib and Peters are going to take away your number one option. But everyone needs to be involved. This is another game. They don't have a linebacker at all that can match up with Tariq Cohen. Nobody in the NFL does, so I'm not giving you anything that you can't see with your own eyes, or that, heck, probably my 4-year-old daughter could see with her own eyes. But there are going to be mismatches everywhere, and we have to take advantage of them. I'm tired of seeing the ignoring of the tight end position. I need us to see a lot more Adam Shaheen. I think all of these things are really going to make a big difference. There are mismatches on this defense, and I think a lot more of Adam Shaheen is going to help you kind of with some of your protection. But that takes me to what protection is, and I wish I could sit before you and say that Aaron Donald, that there's a way to protect and block against him, and there isn't. I mean, especially when you're starting right guard, at least to this date, really couldn't stop me in a bull rush right now, and doesn't look like he's comfortable at all in some of the pass protecting schemes. He doesn't look like he's comfortable in identifying who he's supposed to be blocking or what his particular responsibility on a pass protection is in a different scheme. So you're gonna have to double Donald all day long, and I think there's been some interesting takeaways from this, right? So the teams, by and large, are double and triple teaming Aaron Donald, and the other guys just aren't getting it done. I mean, as a team, if they have 33 sacks, 16 and a half of those are coming from Aaron Donald. You know, Ndamukong has 3.5. You know, they went out and picked out Dante Fowler. He's only got 2 sacks on the year. Buchan, who had a tremendous game against the Kansas City Chiefs, right? He's got 3 sacks. So this is a team that reminded me a lot last year of, and please don't get me wrong, McPhee is nowhere near as good as Aaron Donald, or even, you know, as much as I love Akeem Hicks when it comes to rushing the passer, he's not on that level. But the Bears last year would see McPhee when he was out there, or Hicks getting double teamed, and you're kind of relying on the other guys in one-on-one situations to win. And we've seen much more success at this year with Mack getting a lot more attention, and guys are winning those one-on-one battles. It's not happening as frequently with the Rams, and so they're really moving to a lot of stunts and twists kind of inside to get Aaron some free looks. Phillips is really creative when it comes to the rush. They're moving Ndamukong around. You'll see him a lot kind of as more of a defensive end in obvious run positions, because his run defense is still really pretty good, but the pass rush outside of Donald just isn't there. So you're going to have to double him, but I think you're just going to have to expect in this game plan that he's going to blow some stuff up. And so the tie-in to that, and again, right, this is by no means amazing analysis that Aaron Donald is really good and you have to block him really effectively, but that means that you have to be true on your play calls, and you have to be true on your penalties. You know, we get sloppy offensively way too frequently. Last week, Shane had even said, right, like it felt like we were in 2nd and 10 all day long, 2nd and 14, right? Like every time we kind of make this positive play on first down, there'd be a penalty in the second. There'd be some sloppiness that would come in, and now we're in a 2nd and a 3rd and long, and that's not where you want to be. You don't want to let Bum be able to just pin back the ears and send these guys. That's when they're most effective. So as for my other key for this game, what I found really interesting is Jared Goff has been incredible this year. I mean, what we've seen him do on timing throws, and he's released the ball when the average person doesn't even know what route the wide receiver is going, and it's the right time, the right place. He's been really so interesting to watch in that regards. And he's putting up just numbers, right? 27 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, right? A 4-to-1 ratio, solid completion percentage, massive yards per game. He's been really good in those late night games. Again, the Kansas City Chiefs game somewhat inflates those numbers, but he's thrown 11 of his 27 touchdowns in late night games. He's thrown no interceptions in those either. But again, what we've often heard about Mitch, when people are trying to detract away from his numbers, they kind of throw out these things. Well, he's not been as good on the road as he is at home. You know, he's not as good outside of the scripted plays, and then when he gets into the regular, he kind of takes a step back. You know, the same can kind of be said for Jared Goff in the sense that on the road, Jared Goff has thrown 9 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. It's not, almost a 2-to-1 ratio, which is still fairly solid. But that offense isn't as explosive. His completion percentage at home is nearly 70%. On the road, it's 62%.
One thing when you study golf, he has a tendency to miss some relatively easy throws.
You know, he throws 366 yards per game in the air at home. It's 258 on the road. Still a really good number, but it's a significant difference. His yards per attempt, he's nearly 10 at home. He's 8 on the road. So these are things that when you look at, right, it's a comfortability sort of thing. Every turf is different. They aren't the same offense on the road. And I think when you compound that fact with this is a warm weather, non-dome team that's going to be coming out to play in what looks to be a pretty cold Chicago Bears football game. I mean, it looks to be probably low 20s, maybe upper teens as we get there. And nothing hurts speed more than, aside from the shoddy Soldier Field sod jobs that we have, and big props to them if they want to start ruining that for them a little bit now. But nothing slows speed more down than cold. You just see it. You know, I always remembered the last Super Bowl run, right, and the New Orleans team that had all this speed with Reggie Bush. They didn't look so good in a playoff game when it was cold outside. You kind of you get a little too thin-blooded, right? You're not used to these sorts of things, and so this is a team that's going to have to come out and play in cold. And so, you know, at one point, you know, Whitworth is going to be just as good of a left tackle no matter what the temperature is going to be, and he's a guy who's used to it. You have to see it with all these other guys. They just haven't played in the cold whatsoever, and so that's going to be an interesting thing to watch, right? So again, this is an offense that when you look at the numbers statistically, everybody's averaging over 10 a catch. Todd Gurley is. If you look at what the receivers are doing in Woods and in Cooks, they're like 14 and 15 yards per catch. I mean, these are all big play guys. But that cold weather should slow them down. And I think realistically, the last key, and it's been all over Twitter from a lot of folks. You know, I've seen a lot of people kind of complain about where we got last week because we just went so passive that Vic did that last week. You just can't. I mean, understanding that there aren't as many teams out there with just kind of the overall talent at the skill position that the Rams have, right? Starting with Todd Gurley, who I still think should be in any of the MVP conversations. But when you top that with, I know Kupp is out now with injury, but with Woods, with Brandon Cooks, with Everett at tight end, right? They've got playmakers everywhere, and you have to pick your poison. But you can't let them allow these deep plays to come in. You can't allow them just to gash you. You have to be aggressive. Now that may mean a couple of times that Todd Gurley can go ahead and break one, and this doesn't take away from his importance, right? You don't, as a team, go and rush for, what was it, like 270 against the Denver Broncos. If you aren't comfortable in just going ahead and pounding the ball like that. But I think if you stay true to your tackling and your form, this is a team you need to stay aggressive on. I don't really think there's any shot that this game is going to be a low-scoring affair, and that's no shame to our defense, right? I have a feeling that A, their offense is so aggressive, and B, their defense gives up so many big plays that you're just kind of going to see one of these back and forth type of football games. And what worked for the Rams against the Kansas City Chiefs is my take. They were far more aggressive on the defensive side. They were trying to make things happen. They forced Patrick Mahomes into making a lot of bad decisions, a lot of mistakes. That's the same game plan you've got to take against these Rams. So that's my keys for this week. I'm, again, really looking forward to watching this. Keep Twitter active because I will be, again, watching on the plane and going to be scrolling through everything here and hoping that we can kind of take that stunning loss against the Giants and turn that into a victory for this week. But as always, keep following me, keep reading my insanity on Twitter at CarsKeys1, and you can continue to read anything that I put out at the Barroom. But always looking for feedback and love talking the Bears football with you guys. So till then, I'll talk to you guys next week. See ya.